The act of stabbing a little old lady in her bed, that's a whole nother level of evil right there.
Who would do that? Stab their own mother?
I'd be very curious to find out who would want to kill an 81-year-old little old lady asleep in bed. Do you think the devil always shows up in a tux? No, don't be fooled by a killer's appearance, even if she's a glamorous morning TV anchor. Dr. Priya Banerjee is with us. Dr. Priya, board-certified forensic pathologist and anatomic pathologist with Anchor Forensic Pathology Consulting. Let's just say she's seen a lot of dead bodies. Dr. Priya, what is the difference between a defensive stab wound and a stab wound you would get to your hands when you are the attacker? For instance, your hand sliding down the knife. Unless you're like Brian Kohberger, who had a K-bar knife, which has a hilt. What is a hilt? It looks like a cross. There is a section that turns the blade, it bisects it, and if you're the stabber, your hand would stop at the hilt. Okay? So if there is a knife that does not have a hilt, how can you tell the difference between a wound sustained to the hand if you are the stabber versus a defensive wound?
Well, I think that can be challenging. You need to look at where it is. If you're putting your hands up this way on the back, that is obviously defensive. You're not going to in any way have the knife use the back of your hand to stab someone. Now, if it's on the palms and it's really deep, maybe you did have a grabbing motion where the knife slipped. Remember, repeated stabs make the knife bloody, which makes it slippery.
Earlier, you heard a veteran trial lawyer, Jim Elliott, describe why the morning TV news star could have escaped a deranged killer unscathed because she's 20 to 30 years younger than her 81-year-old mother. Typically, the state does not have to prove motive, but I'd be very curious to find out who would want to kill an 81-year-old little old lady asleep in bed. Joining me is veteran trial lawyer Jim Elliott, attorney with Butler Snow, legal counsel for multiple municipalities and governmental entities at butlersnow.com. Jim, thank you for being with us. Jim Elliott, you've tried a lot of cases in court. Blood evidence is very tricky, especially if you don't know what you're doing. But one thing I would be looking at is the degree to which the blood had coagulated at the time when EMTs and first responders get there. And it's really difficult, Jim. You've been on a lot of scenes. They're trying to save the 81-year-old mom's life. They're not thinking, has the blood coagulated? They're trying to resuscitate her and get her airlifted to the hospital. Where I would come in as a prosecutor, it's critical that we know whether the blood had dried, not just coagulated. Coagulated means it's kind of like Jell-O. It's not thin, liquefied like water anymore. It's more of a Jell-O consistency. That's coagulated. And the harder it gets, the closer it gets to being dried. In your experience, Jim Elliott, why is it so important that we know whether the blood was still liquid, as in water, semi-coagulated, as in Jell-O, or flat out dried?
Well, certainly that goes to what time the crime actually occurred or the stabbing occurred. And probably in that case, you're only going to have the eyewitness testimony of the first responders who can indicate what they saw, perhaps without a great deal of expertise in that regard.
Oh, yeah, they'll be torn to shreds on cross-exam. We've got to have more than that. We have to have the cops in there immediately processing the scene. But the reality is, Jim Elliott, it takes a beat for the entire CSI to arrive, and you could lose that critical evidence. Why is it critical? I need to know when this 81-year-old mother was stabbed multiple times in her bed. You know another thing, Elliot? I noticed this when prosecuting in inner city Atlanta. When the victim is very young, like an infant, or very old, for some reason, those cases are very often pled down to like manslaughter of some degree. You got voluntary, you got involuntary. I don't know why, but have you noticed that phenomenon? It used to burn me up. Like somehow, because the victim is really young and hadn't lived yet as an infant, or really old, they don't matter anymore. Did you notice that? I'd love to see a statistic on that.
That certainly can be the case, and I guess that's kind of driven by the value of the life at the time of the passing. You indicated that he was bedridden. That's not been in all the news coverage of the event, and her pictures seem to indicate she's pretty healthy.
Head blowing off. Commercial break. The value of the life. You know what? You sound a lot like a civil lawyer right now, where you try to get a money verdict from a jury and you ask the jury to put a dollar value on somebody's life. So what? If they're old, Jim Elliott, they're just not worth as much? Go ahead, put it out there.
It's the usual measure of damages, Nancy, whether it's morally right or fits everyone's code of ethics or not. That's the way our system works. With regard to that measurement, that's what I'm talking about.
Well, maybe for you, Jim Elliott, and you've won a lot of cases with civil juries, and now I see why, because you actually said that like it's true. Just because it is done, Elliott, does not mean it should be done. That doesn't mean it's okay just because it happens. A dollar value on a life, that premise right there is concerning to me. But that said, Jim Elliott, I want you to tell me the truth. Isn't it true that when the victim is an infant, and you don't have a whole lot of cute Christmas pictures and, baptizing pictures and family pictures at Disney, all that, and a really old victim, I am telling you, it's anecdotal, not a statistic, that those plea deals are cheaper than they are for just to say a young, vibrant man or woman. Have you noticed that? Be honest.
Yeah, I think it can be. I think with regard to the younger people, you can't really paint a picture of their life for the jury. That's what prosecutors would probably worry about. With regard to an older person, and again, there's going to be this attitude that they live their life, and sadly, is it a
that may be the attitude, Elliott,
70s,
but
80s,
don't bring it to crime stories. Save it for your civil juries. Okay, I'm going to let Elliott sit there and think about what he just said and move this case forward.